Erosion along Lake Michigan is pitting neighbor against neighbor in Indiana. While some want to build barriers to protect their property along the lake, others want to block those efforts. As Indiana Public Broadcasting's Rebecca Theo reports, a lawsuit between two of those neighbors brings up questions about how to protect lakeshore towns and the future of the Lake Michigan shoreline.
Back in the 90s, Nancy Schwab's family vacation home in Beverly Shores wasn't as close to Lake Michigan as it is today. She says you would burn your feet on the sand getting to the water in the summer.
We used to have another, I would say, 100 to 150 feet of beach, going far out to where the waves are starting. And many memories of being out here with the family.
This time of year, in late February, Schwab says the ice on the lake used to stretch as far as the eye could see, shielding the shoreline from the harsh winter waves.
So much as it's nice to get those 51-degree days, when we have a 51-degree day, my heart stops because I'm like, we're just not getting that protection anymore.
Every day, the water inches closer to the road and utility lines in front of her home. Any closer, and it will have no heat, no water, and her family won't be able to reach it from the road.
It's very sad that it's taken this beach that everybody enjoys.
Erosion isn't just affecting homeowners. It could also drive tourists away. Millions visit Indiana's lakeshore every year. In Porter County alone, they contribute more than $350 million to the local economy annually, helping to fund everything from schools to fire departments. The restaurant Wagner's Ribs sits about 10 miles from Schwab's home. Owner Dave Wagner says about a third of his revenue comes from tourists, which is common for small businesses in the area. If tourists don't come, Wagner might not need to hire an extra dozen summer workers. He may even have to lay off some full-time employees.
Everyone that works here supports themselves off the money they make in this building. The servers, the cooks, all of them. And most of them, this is their main source of income. And if we don't get that summertime push, people will lose their jobs.
Tourism here is closely tied to one of the most unique and sensitive ecosystems in the country. Indiana Dunes became one of the newest national parks last year. The park's chief of resource management, Dan Plath, says overall, Indiana Dunes has been luckier than its neighbors. But if the lake comes up, say, another 5 feet higher, he says that's going to have a much bigger impact.
We actually have endangered pitcher's thistle, what lives up in the dunes, and if it keeps going, we're probably going to start getting into an area where we have an endangered species.
Other damage is more visible. Erosion collapsed most of the 100-foot walkway built so people with disabilities can enjoy the lakeside view. This round piece of concrete in the water used to be an observation deck. Officials are trying to restore the park's beaches, possibly by dumping sand on the beach or scaling back breakwaters so sand can naturally float to shore. Park Superintendent Paul Labovitz says they might even move buildings back from the lake.
And we haven't decided that yet, but we're thinking that way. We have to get away from Lake Michigan. Building things close to the lake is not a good idea.
The question is, will the Great Lakes shoreline get a chance to heal? With climate change, it's hard to say. Kerry Troy of Purdue University researches coastal engineering along Lake Michigan. He says climate change is creating extremes, very high lake levels in some years and very low levels in others.
We know that rainfall is increasing over the Great Lakes, so that piece of the lake level budget is definitely increasing. But as temperatures warm, there may be also a tendency for evaporation to increase, and that makes it very difficult to predict which effect is going to outweigh the other.
So while we have high lake levels now, Troy says those levels could go down.
But I will say that even though the water level can recover fairly quickly, the coastline cannot. The coastline will take a long time to kind of rebuild.
No less than 5 Indiana communities have made emergency declarations because of the erosion. One of them is Beverly Shores, where Nancy Schwab's home is. The town has spent more than $300,000 to fix erosion damage, and the town council president says there's no money left. Schwab always planned to retire in the house and someday pass it on to her grandchildren.
I'm not going to even think about this house falling into the lake. Can't go there. So we'll hope for the best.
Lakefront communities are hoping the governor will declare a statewide emergency, allowing them to get federal funding to combat erosion. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Rebecca Thiel.